And he found an old bulb, and he opened it up, and he resoldered it, and it got working.
Wow. And now it lives in Stephen's house.
No, I just rented it now.
What were some of the, I guess, sort of the bigger scale things, so what were some of the most challenging?
I heard it was on the first take. I heard it was on after the first take. The first take, Joe sent me a picture from the set, and everybody's standing around with a guy, diving into the pinball machine trying to fix it.
Because it's so funny, because this film had so many extraordinary technicians, and every area is covered. You have the cars, you have the camera, you have Lucy's world, you have, my world.
Stop.
This funny old pinball machine had no world attached to it. There was no engineers that came with it.
You feel like you're in the car is so incredible, but then you cut to a shot where you're watching the two cars and you're going, there's no mounts or cameras on that car, sort of thing. So the attention to detail of those shots, and that's the editing on that, of cutting between those, is just how? Where did you start with these, particularly with the race segments of this?
And by the way, in terms of the band meeting, I'm usually cocooned away from everybody because he doesn't want me to necessarily. Well, he doesn't want me to like. The good thing for me is I have the perspective of watching without knowing how hard it was to capture.
Okay, yeah.
So if it's
to enjoy it.
Yeah. So and if it's not impressing me, knowing all the work that went into it, then maybe it doesn't belong in the movie. But this movie is different than a lot of projects for me or any editor, because in order to do all of the stuff that they were doing at live events, in cooperation with all the teams and all that, the preparation was enormous. And the windows for when you could shoot were really tiny. Like, you maybe had to do a scene with all the crowds and all the lineup, you had like 5 or 10 minutes to shoot a scene. That's not normal for making a movie.
Yeah.
So my involvement earlier on than normal was getting involved with doing what we call like storyboard cuts, taking these tremendous storyboards that were done. Richard, I forgot his last name. He did these tremendous storyboards.
Technology for it. I mean, there are so many kind of perspectives that we get to see, but for those cars to be able to house cameras, what type of cameras, they're housing. There's so many variants to capturing what you want to capture for us to feel it.
Well, there was a difference. Like, we did something similar on Top Gun, but on Top Gun they didn't have to fly the plane. So the difference in this one, they actually had to drive the car. So that was a big difference. So if I put the same camera in front of that I had for Top Gun, it would have been, they couldn't see where they're going. And it was really critical to see where you're going.
Yeah. There's a corner coming up.
So I actually had Sony develop a really small camera for us that we were able to, I always said, like a sensor on a stick. And there were one-offs. So they built us 20 one-off cameras for us. And and I built like little bridges where they can kind of see underneath. And also we wanted to have a new effect that we wanted the cameras to be able to pan.
Yeah.
And also pull focus, and also be able to go around all the track. So that was a little bit of engineering. And also the cars had to be safe for potentially crashing. So I had to work closely with Mercedes, engineering camera mounts, and I worked, trying to previs where all the camera mounts and work with Joe back and forth and say, what do you think about this one? And then it's not like we could just get on the car and just stick things on there. That had to be safe. So everything had to be a 3-month lead time before we could actually say, okay. So that was challenging.
Because Brad's positioning to Damson's character's positioning is in the right place for the story. But then on top of that, you're having to run in quickly in between these races happening to capture stuff.
I mean, there's not only racing, but there was even some events that we were doing. I think when they were singing the national anthem for Silverstone.
Yeah.
That was our first. We had to rehearse that whole thing because we're doing that live, and That one, I get one take. And actually, I did do a little trick, which I was like, I kind of see in the take of it.
Yeah.
And I go like, oh, it's going to kill me. but I don't have a choice. That is the take. So normally in a film, I go, I mess up. And we had to be really small. Like normally we'd have cranes or we'd have bigger pieces of gear, so we had to be kind of light and mobile in the way we approached it. And we did have, and there's, sometimes you only get one take. There was this scene where I just had a camera on a little like pole. And normally we'd have like fancy cranes and like expensive stuff. And we just had to be a really small print. So they're doing the formation lap and we have our cars in the back. And we're actually starting off in the formation lap. And you know, we have to kind of be ready for that. And we get literally one take. And we all like planned and rehearsed. And that was, I was like, you know, like nervous.
Squeaky bum time.
Thought that we better put him on the track to see if he could handle the driving.
Wow.
That was part of the audition process.
Did he get any, like, you know, training, or was it just a case of getting in the car?
He's a
and
really
drive?
smart, brilliant guy. So of course he did loads of training, loads of practice, and he turned up and he did really well. And at the end of his audition day, he turned to me and said, "Right, Lucy, your turn, get in the car."
And did you?
I did.
Yes!
And it was absolutely terrifying.
But it's interesting to think about what Joseph was looking for. You know, you go through all this, you see lots of people for this role, and as a casting director, is it a feeling? Do you see something? Do you feel something?
Well, it's a huge role going toe-to-toe with Brad, and we needed to find a young actor who was able to take that on. It's a massive arc, it's a huge challenge, it's a huge responsibility of a part. And then there's the technical aspect of it, of can he actually do it? Because they were really driving. So it was a rigorous process.
And within that side of things as well, you know, a big role for someone to take, but as important are all these kind of smaller parts that we see, and particularly in this film where you have the team, you know, all those engineers and all those incredible technicians that are working. There's camaraderie there, there's relationships there that we might not dive into it, but we've got to feel those relationships are real and honest. That in itself must be such a tricky thing to kind of maneuver and find those people.
Yeah, that's right. And Joe Kosinski was really determined to make the world as authentic as possible. And for me, there's no such thing as a small part, because every time anyone's carrying the dialogue, they are telling the story. And each individual part was so carefully picked that Joe referenced, like Gunther Steiner for our team captain, which is Kim Bodnia, and Lewis's own engineer. He referenced Peter Bonington for the engineer parts who were in the earpieces of Braden Danson's character. So I had all these great reference points for Joe, which were very detailed to make sure that the world was authentic as possible. And so we just zoned in and found actors. And then with the mechanics, we took them down to the garage where they were building the cars to see if they could believably work with the cars.
So usual thought is kind of sets and big things. But it's amazing how, talk to me about the intricacies of the production design in this film, and how important those elements are. Like the pinball machine, for example, you know, how they are driving story, relationships, narrative, how people feel about each other, all those kind of things. Every detail is about driving the narrative of the story. Is that fair?
Absolutely, yeah. And going back to something that Claudia was saying at the beginning about the authenticity of the film. And that was one of Joe's most important kind of notions, really. And as an art department, we are normally used to building and creating the world. It's all about, at the beginning of the film, it's all about us creating this universe that the world exists in. And what on this we were faced with was we didn't actually need to create the world was there, we needed to fit into the world. So there are several worlds. There are the F1, there's Daytona, and then there's the real life world. So, you know, the challenge was, and one of the first meetings that myself and Mark, the other production designer, had with Joe at the beginning was how we make authenticity also super cool, you know. And so the garage had to look great, it had to be, you know, another character in the film is the car. So the garage had to showcase the car, as well as the actors, which we're normally having to deliver sets to showcase the actors. So I had to showcase the car. And then you had Daytona, which was this extraordinary world, which is a real kind of difference between you start the film in Daytona and it's gritty and it's loud and it's aggressive. And again, we had to fit in, you know, and I think what we have succeeded in is that no one actually really comments in this film about the production design. And that, to me, is we have succeeded. And then you have things like you're talking about the pinball. So then you have the world which is outside of the racing world.
Yeah.
And again, you have to be authentic. You can't be overly elaborate. You can't be too showy, you know, because it is about creating an authentic world.